Hi, I'm John from Gentleman and Whiskey.
And I'm Bryan from Gentleman and Whiskey, and also 717.
And we've got a battle of the 10-year-old allocated ryes.
Both 10 years, both 2023 releases. One's almost twice the MSRP as the other.
That's true.
And one you can still buy right now.
Which one will come out on top? Find out after the break. So we've got your bottle of Old Overholt and my bottle of Parker's Heritage, although you also have a Parker's Heritage. We got them at the same time, thanks to one of our friends in the 717.
Yeah, you got to love PA sometimes.
Gotta love Mr. Drops.
Yeah, Mr. Drops.
Mr. Drops.
Shout out to Mr. Drops.
We know that the Old Overholt is 10 years old and 121 proof. We think that it's a 51% rye.
We think it's a little bit of a cheater rye. You and I both looked it up. We can't find the mash bill.
Yeah.
Kind of a big secret, even though it's Jim Beam. Parker's, did they disclose their mash bill?
It is 51% rye, 35% corn, 14% malted barley. So it is a little bit higher malted barley than their normal, because their normal product is 12% malted barley.
Interesting, yeah.
So high corn for both of these. They say high corn. With ryes, it's kind of like when you say a high rye bourbon, a high corn rye is very similar. So it should be in that gray area between bourbon and rye.
I've had both of these. You have not. They both kind of fall in that level as a cheater rye, right?
Yeah.
And shout out to Chris Big Stick. He may actually like these. If you don't tell him it's a rye.
Chris is a friend of the channel. We've had him on a few live streams and hope to have him on some more. So, this is, I think, going to be a really good battle of the 10 years. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited. The chatter and get at her.
All right.
Bam.
That is a meaty cork on that.
This is the old Granddad bottle, right? Like, I'm not crazy. I think it's the
it
old
looks
Granddad
like
114 bottle.
Yeah, it's close, but I feel like it's shaped slightly different. Do you have an old GD?
I don't actually
really?
have one at
Interesting.
the moment.
Okay.
I had one for G&W. Look out. Some
Drippage.
Drippage, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's a giant mouth to it, so it's not surprising that it's dripping a little bit.
Yep.
So they're 7.8 proof points apart. Same age statement. $100 for the
Old Overholt. Yep. $99.99.
$99. Okay.
Still available on Fine Wine Good Spirits.
It's basically a $100 rye.
Yeah.
And then the Parker's Heritage is not anymore available.
No.
And we managed to both get it on Black Friday for less than MSRP.
Yeah, an insane sale on Black Friday on the website, and
Pennsylvania is a absolutely bonkers state to live in. So, but we're gentlemen in whiskey, so let's drink some whiskey.
Sounds good.
Nose it first, then taste it.
Cheers.
This is the Old Overholt. I have a feeling these are going to be very similar.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on both and which you like better for sure.
Interesting to note that post-fire, these both use the same yeast strain.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Because post-fire, Jim Beam stepped in to help Heaven Hill, and the way that they did so was with the yeast strain. So Jim Beam and Heaven Hill use the same yeast strain. I think that's interesting to note here, because I think it's going to play a lot into the fact that these smell the same.
The Old Overholt is kind of a secret. They don't disclose it, but I think it's very close to the Parkers and Mashbill.
And you told me earlier that your preferred rye for an old-fashioned is?
Knob Creek.
Yeah.
Yes.
I completely agree with that. I think at some point we have to do a video on that.
Yeah, I would agree.
A lot of brown sugar.
I also get brown sugar. I do get that sweet corn smell too, but not on the front part of the nose that you would from a bourbon. It's more as you pull your nose out of the glass that I get that, along with the typical baking spices. And I don't know, everyone says, when they say baking spices, everyone means something different. I always smell like cinnamon, nutmeg, those kinds of spices.
Yeah, I think baking spices as a whole, right? You're talking about things that are similar to pumpkin spice.
Yep.
So like the actual pumpkin spice itself is usually a mixture of like cinnamon and clove and nutmeg and kind of all of those things. Those are like what we consider to be baking spices.
Exactly. Yeah, and I will say I am a sucker for pumpkin spice.
I also do enjoy a pumpkin spice latte.
Yeah.
I do generally get it with a little bit less sugar, though.
Yeah.
It's a lot of sugar. A lot of whipped cream. Speaking of which, this has a little bit of whipped cream to me, too. Like a little bit of like whipped cream, cake icing, and then some like spearmint.
Yeah, I was just going to say vanilla frosting, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
The more you swirl it.
Yeah, vanilla frosting, and then just a hint of like herbal, spearmint, winter mint, something like that.
You know, I'm also getting a little bit of oak, so I think I'm smelling the wood sugars along with the classic vanilla notes of probably the higher corn mash bill.
Let's try it.
Cheers.
Cheers. It's a little bit more traditional rye on the palate.
Yeah. Definitely the rye spice comes up front.
The generic rye profile to me is very herbal and minty.
No, I get that. I actually get the mint more so on the palate than the nose.
It was definitely a hint of mint on the nose, but it's more boldly mint on the palate. The wood sugars, the creme brulee or the vanilla, I don't think is as evident on the palate.
I will say that, and actually, I mean, it has decent legs, but the finish is not as long as I thought it would be for the proof.
When it comes to mouthfeel, when it comes to consistency, usually a higher malt mash bill is what gets you there.
Yep.
Parker's has a higher malt. Has about 14% malt. It's usually in the 10% range. This is at 14. We don't obviously know what Jim Beam uses.
No, again, undisclosed mash bill, but just based on the legs I see in the glass, the shorter finish, I think it's definitely lower barley content.
I don't know if I'm the only one saying this, but I wish that more companies were
Transparent.
better,
for sure.
transparent, absolutely.
Yep.
In their mash bills, because I think, and seeing what you like can help you determine what you like.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think when you spend the $100 or the almost $200 on the Parkers, disclosing the mash bill, depending where you are in your whiskey journey, helps you pry that money out of your wallet, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an investment. It's not going to be an everyday bottle. It's going to be a bottle to share with friends. It's going to be a special occasion bottle. You want to make sure it's something that aligns with your palate. I know what mash bills I like and proof level.
It's like food, right? Mash bills are the recipe. At some point, I'm going to do a video that's going to be all-encompassing of what causes flavor in whiskey.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
So the first step is the mash bill, right? When companies are creating a profile, mash bill, I think, is the first and foremost thing that they think of.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the quality of the ingredients, really.
All right, you want to move on to the Parkers?
Yeah, for sure.
And then we'll give some of our thoughts here.
All right. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
It's close. It does smell darker.
This one's more bourbon-y to me. I don't get some of those like herbal rye notes.
It is sweet. I get a little more cherry on the nose.
Parker's is a highly charred barrel. What that means is the char is causing flavor, right? So the interaction between the whiskey and the barrel is causing a lot of the like brown sugar and vanilla that we're getting off of this. You talked about wood sugars earlier. The higher the char, the more the wood sugar. I mean, I'm sure that there's a limit at some point, but yeah.
Before it tastes like
just
fire.
Before it tastes like Isla Scotch.
Yeah.
This is very bourbon-y to me.
Yeah, I agree. Way sweeter on the nose. I still get some rye spice as I pull my nose out of the glass. It does have a little bit thicker legs.
You want to try it?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, man.
That's good. Very good.
So good.
Yeah.
It's not rye, though.
No, I mean, again, shout out to Chris Big Stick. I think I could fool you with this one, buddy.
We've got some stuff lined up with Chris and Sherry.
Good.
From the PA Bourbon Squad. I forget his YouTube handle, but we'll link it below. He's been in some of our stuff.
Definitely more oak, too, on this one.
As you look at the bottles, right, there is clearly a color difference.
So it's not just me.
No, it's not just you.
It's just me.
I think very clearly the Old Overholt is lighter. Proof does make a difference, right? Because proof is the indication of how much water is in something.
And what's interesting is, now that you've had the Old Overholt,
I
was curious if you were going to pick up on the Jim Beam nuttiness, and that was not a tasty note. When I first cracked the bottle, I got a little bit of the peanut finish on the back end, but as the bottle's been open, no one has said anything about the classic Jim Beam nuttiness on the finish.
I wonder, though, because there's nuttiness on both sides. I think the yeast is what causes that nuttiness, which is why like Elijah Craig, I think, is very comparable to Knob Creek in their nuttiness. Neither of these are particularly nutty. I wonder if that's the rye. I wonder if the rye is taking over that.
Yeah, I mean, the rye spice is a powerful flavor. I do taste the rye more on the Old Overholt than in the Parkers, for sure.
I completely agree. So now we have 2 questions. The first question is, which of these 2 is your favored?
Price excluded, I would lean towards the Parkers. Absolutely.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I think the Parkers leans towards bourbon. We're both primarily bourbon guys. This is more of a bourbon type whiskey.
100%, yeah.
So I think rye enjoyers primarily will enjoy the Old Overholt more because it is more traditionally rye.
I would agree with that. I think if you want a pleasant, creamy rye pour, the Old Overholt is what you want.
Completely agree. Now the second question is Parker's $85 better than Old Overholt?
To me, yes, because I think they're both good, but for different reasons.
Okay.
I think the Old Overholt is a different flavor profile than the Parkers. I think the Parkers is a more special occasion pour, a bottle to share with a fellow whiskey enthusiast. The Old Overholt, I think, is a very, very good rye to people in their whiskey journey.
I also agree. I think that Parker's is worth $85 more. I think there is a reason that there's still some of the Old Overholt available. And that's partly, I think, because if you don't watch Mad Men, Old Overholt is not a household name. If you're not Don Draper, I think Parker's is my more favored whiskey, and I think it is worth it. But I do think both of these are worth their price.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it still boggles my mind that Old Overholt is out there. I know I've personally spent more than $99.99 on a bottle and been way more disappointed than the flavor that you get with Old Overholt.
Yep.
Again, I do like rye. So if you do like the more savory end of the spectrum of whiskey and a nice rye spice, I think it's a bottle that you should try, even if you can get a pour from a friend.
Yep. Or a bar.
Or a bar.
Some of the whiskey people around here don't have friends like we have. We are very blessed by the 717 Bourbon Society.
Yes, we are. And Gentlemen of Whiskey. Yep.
I definitely think both of these are worth purchasing at their price points, but I do think Parker's is worth $85 more. So comment if you've had either of these. We'd love to hear your opinions on these. If you don't like ryes, totally get it. If you like this content, please drop a like and a comment on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And we hope you'll join us in drinking like a gentleman. Cheers.
Cheers.
Fred Minnick says that you can tell a distillery by its legs.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not there.
I would probably challenge him to that.
I'm not there.